Imagine if tomorrow your country splits into two. One side became one of the richest economies on Earth, and the other became one of the most isolated nations in history. Families would be separated, friends would never see each other again, and decades later, the two countries would still technically be at war. This isn't fiction. This is exactly what happened to Korea. Today, North Korea and South Korea couldn't be more different. One is famous for K-pop, Samsung, and modern cities. The other is famous for missiles, military parades, and secrecy. But surprisingly, both nations were once the same country. So how did Korea split into two? And why hasn't it reunited even after 80 years? Let's find out. For most of its history, Korea was a single kingdom. For centuries, Koreans shared the same language, culture, traditions, and identity. Despite invasions and wars, Korea remained united. But everything changed in the early 20th century. In 1910, Japan officially took over Korea, and the Korean people suddenly found themselves under foreign rule. For the next 35 years, Japan controlled the peninsula. Korean culture was suppressed, resources were extracted, and many Koreans were forced into labor. The dream of independence seemed distant. Then came World War II, and with it, a dramatic opportunity. In August 1945, Japan surrendered, World War II was over, and Korea was finally free. But there was a massive problem. Who would govern the country? The United States and the Soviet Union were the two most powerful victors of the war, and both wanted influence in East Asia. So, in a rushed decision, they proposed to divide Korea along the 38th parallel. The Soviet Union would occupy the north, and the United States would occupy the south. The arrangement was supposed to be completely temporary. The idea was to stabilize the country and eventually reunify it. But history had other plans. Soon after World War II ended, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union began rising. This became known as the Cold War. The Soviet Union promoted communism, while the United States promoted capitalism and democracy. And neither side trusted the other. Because of this, Korea became one of the very first battlegrounds of this global rivalry. In the north, the Soviets helped establish a communist government led by Kim Il-sung. In the south, a separate government backed by the United States took power. By 1948, two rival governments existed, and each claimed to be the legitimate ruler of all Korea. The temporary division was officially becoming permanent. Then, in June 1950, disaster struck. North Korean forces crossed the 38th parallel and invaded South Korea, and the Korean War had begun. Within weeks, much of South Korea was captured, but the United Nations, led primarily by the United States, intervened to defend the South. Soon, the tide turned. UN forces pushed north and nearly reached the Chinese border, but then China entered the war on North Korea's side. Massive battles followed, cities changed hands repeatedly, and millions of civilians were caught right in the middle. The conflict became one of the bloodiest wars of the 20th century. After 3 years of intense fighting, neither side could achieve total victory. In 1953, an armistice agreement was signed, but not a peace treaty. Technically speaking, the war never officially ended, and that's still completely true today. After the war, both countries were completely devastated. Their cities lay in ruins, and their economies were shattered. At first, neither side seemed destined for success, but over the following decades, their paths diverged dramatically. South Korea embraced international trade, industrialization, and major economic reforms. Companies like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG grew into global giants, transforming the country into one of the world's leading economies. Today, South Korea is universally known for technology, entertainment, and innovation. Meanwhile, North Korea followed a very different path. The country remained under the strict rule of the Kim family and became increasingly isolated from the outside world. Resources were directed towards the military, economic growth stagnated, and information from the outside world became tightly controlled. As time passed, the gap between the two Koreas grew larger and larger. Between the two countries lies the Demilitarized Zone, or the DMZ. Despite its name, it's actually one of the most heavily guarded borders on Earth, packed with barbed wire fences, landmines, guard towers, and thousands of troops. The border stretches roughly 250 kilometers across the peninsula. For many families separated during the war, it became an almost impossible barrier. Some relatives never saw each other again, while others spent decades wondering whether their loved ones were even alive. The human cost of division remains one of Korea's deepest scars. Many people assume reunification is inevitable. After all, East and West Germany reunited, so why not Korea? The answer is actually pretty complicated. The political systems are completely different, the economic gap is enormous, and there are major security concerns. Plus, decades of separation have created totally different experiences and identities. Reunification would likely cost trillions of dollars and require massive political changes. While both governments occasionally discuss cooperation, a full reunification remains completely uncertain. For now, the border remains. The story of Korea is one of the most remarkable stories in modern history. A single nation was divided by global superpowers. A temporary line became a permanent border, and a devastating war froze the conflict in place. Over time, two countries emerged that could hardly be more different. Yet despite everything, the people on both sides still share a common history stretching back thousands of years. And perhaps that's what makes Korea's story so fascinating. It's not just the story of two countries, it's the story of one country that never truly stopped being divided. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more stories explaining how today's world was shaped by history.